Today, Rinpoche gave an overview of the 8 types of suffering with a focus on the suffering of birth.
Lari chimchina pui nye jago ngotile tinye barwa ane tinye barwa Veidere, Nija Juji, Ungodel, Tinya Battere, Niba Dunga Gumbalani, Dunga Gumbangolani, Koashi, Dunga Samba to Susu Dunga Samba, water neutral Mara. Because the ancient attention.
Lesser. Nija Juji,
Pui Nija Juji, Ungodel, Tinya Batte. Dunga Gumba, Molani, Sirwa.
Okay. So if everybody wants to turn to page 271 in the English Lamrim, that's where we're going to begin. We have the actual meditation on suffering, reflection on the general suffering of cyclic existence or the universal suffering of cyclic existence, and then reflection on specific sufferings.
Ni dunge edal dundu dunge na sunsu dunga sun ne me dunge lai dunge me dunge lama yin lai dunge ta ro ri dunge samba susu samba de susu dunge samba so tere doa ko shi dunge samba ta nga je dundu doa susu dunge samba de ro ri susu dunge samba ni dunga samba yeda dunga samba tunri dunga samba me dunga samba hamaye je dunga samba lai dunga samba susu samba dele susu dunga samba dele doa
nipa.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first section, or the first category in the outline under the heading the actual meditation on suffering, we have reflection on the universal suffering of cyclic existence. And then there we have the various types of suffering that are presented by 8, 6, and 3. So the 8 types of suffering, 6 types of suffering, and the 3 types of suffering. The second category, reflection on specific sufferings, deals with the specifically with the individuals who suffering. So the meaning of that, individual suffering, is referring to the suffering of the lower realm beings, the suffering of the hell beings, the hungry ghost beings, the suffering of the animals, and then also the suffering of the humans, the suffering of the demigods, the suffering of the gods. So the specific reflection on specific types of suffering or specific sufferings is referring to those individuals' sufferings. Individuals' sufferings. Dixon.
This one.
So.
Da dombo koashi dunga samba dala dunga je samba tru samba sun samba re doa da koashi dunga samba dala dunga tru je samba ta tru samba what the je samba dunga so what the lari sajil ta ya go je da tru sun ga seb do khadon what the dunga je samba khadon what the ma yimba what the dunga tomba dunga je dunga gai dunga nai dunga chi dunga maduba na chibi dunga duba na chai dunga Debi ngobu teja manye bidunga, dona yawale pumunga dunga jetiye.
Leso.
Tanyeba dunga tru samba dendere dua, dunga tru dua changha nga changshin, sajin chang debu dua.
Leso.
Dunga tru samba la trus, ane ngeba mebi dunga dambare dua, ngeba mebi dunga, ane toa dam mawa dawa dendere ngeba yo maris.
Leso.
Ngoba mebi dunga, ane nga su le longshe tu kazi pechi chen ngwa yo marwa. Ane le yang na ya tundu yu dunga, sumba je, yang nye san shi yu dunga, yang kwa le mate si shen shi tala yang she, yang nye san she, yang nye san she jewa len du gu ro ta, nye san she wa.
The Korwa Jewa Len Yang. Okay.
Kwa le mate shen shi tala tanda yang che, yang she, yang jewa len, nye san she du gu ro te, nye mi marwa ta.
Leso.
Tā yāng nā yāng tūmē tu jū, yāng sāng sāng lāl jī, yāng zāng nyāwā lī jī wā tēnā kī ngā bā yu mā rē sī sō tūmē tu jū wā. Tēnā chū mē bī ngā pā.
Sansan Hua Jade, Sansan Gare
Tēnā tēnā rū jī rē, tēnā rū jī ngā rū jī, wā tēnā ngā bā mē bā rē tā. Tēnā chū mē bī ngā pā, wā tē chū tēl tēngā chū tē rē ndu wā. Khu tū sā jī yu nā, sā jī lī tā rā nā sī bū tu wā. Dunga son da dujun nga su lao dea dre, dunga ji dunga, yu dunga, chaban duje ji dunga o tu son dre duwa.
The Drupa Donda Gare.
Drupa the true maybe dunga re, parent, no parent.
Then the
True maybe ne bas. No call what the Drupa to be that raya kabu injil da.
and then this okay. The Dixon. This
What the dunga true dan son da tu ka ko su saji tu lu mo je je sha na saji l jang de bu duwa. La ni chemel mo de jong chemel ja de te ko ka bro wa. Saji tu lu te jang de bu duwa.
Then the Dugil Sun Lagoe.
Dunga son dunga ji dunga dang ga so ba ji du su dunga la so dunga im chao se wa re. Pa shin de ji ka tu te da. Dunga ji dunga yu dunga ta te na wo te ku de wa tu so mar ba chaban du ji dunga wo te le da nyo mo wa ju dunga de ji ro wo te son to wo te re do wa.
Okay. So we'll do. So when we look at the first category, going back to the outline, and we look at the reflection on general or the universal sufferings of cyclic existence, if we go to the outline, it's quite easy to understand the different categories and to see exactly what they are. So if we look at the reflection on the 8 types of suffering, that is referring to the suffering of birth, the suffering of old age, the suffering of sickness, the suffering of death, the suffering of encountering what is unpleasant, the suffering of being separated from what is pleasant, the suffering of not getting what you want, and the suffering of the 5 appropriated aggregates. So these are the 8 categories of suffering. So that's the first category under the reflection on the universal sufferings of cyclic existence, or general sufferings of cyclic existence. So then, when we go to the suffering, the 6 types of suffering, we have first the fault of uncertainty. So there is no certainty within cyclic existence where we will be born and what we will have and so forth. We can't be certain of that. The fault of insatiability. No matter how good our body is or how many enjoyments we have, we always want more. So we're not satisfied. Not satisfied. Fault of casting off bodies repeatedly means that we were, because of repeated rebirth, we are shucking off or getting rid of these bodies over and over again. And then the fault of repeated rebirth means that we are born, then we live a life, and then we die. And then we're born again, and we live a life, and we die. And this is the cyclic existence. So then, fault of repeatedly descending from high to low. We can be reborn in the higher realms of cyclic existence, such as the God's realm, and then the next rebirth be born as an animal. So this is what is meant by descending from high to low. And then the next category is the fault of having no companions, and this means that we don't have friends to accompany us through this process. So we don't have friends through this process of repeatedly shucking off bodies and repeatedly descending from high to low, etc. So that is the 6 types of suffering. And then the 3 types of suffering are first the suffering of suffering. And if we look at the Prajnaparamita teachings, we'll find that it states that the suffering of suffering is necessarily a feeling suffering, a suffering feeling. So that is necessarily that according to the Prajnaparamita. And then the suffering of change is actual happiness in cyclic existence. So the suffering of change is the happiness of cyclic existence. And then number 3, the pervasive compounded suffering. I think the Lamrim Chenmo, they call it something different. So just let me look what the suffering of conditionality. So in the Lamrim Chenmo we have suffering of conditionality. And what that means is that we are forced to have rebirth again and again within cyclic existence by our karma and afflictions. So this is what the 8 types of suffering refers to, the 6 types of suffering refers to, and the 3 types of suffering. And it becomes very clear if we just look at the outline, then and we can understand at least those categories by name. When we look at the general category of 8, 6, and 3. We can know what that specifically means. This one.
Oh, yeah. What did my doing J. Gumba, what tongue out with the J. Sambat Tom with the Marva? Doing J. Rava. Doing J. Samba, 2 Samba, Son J. 다 전부 등에 제 상바 등에 제 상바 어때 등에 제 상바들로 어때 자주 사지 가지 되는 공고 봐서 시팅이 뭐 시팅 대제 되면 또 뭐볼래 아니 등에 뭔지 because 등에 제도 송요아레스 뭐물로 시팅래 아니 어때 시팅 놀로 어때 등에 제 두용아레스 돌 송샤바 두여 shedding on down the Sarava, and then what Congo was at the Marva, doing a jet what the shedding the song, most of them was jet, so did do a jet dress, jet talon is a 7 to hote. Most of them was shedding them was what in the Jadule, shedding Jean Neugure, shedding Jean Luquate Gure, what the John Tel Kaudua. Nelaris Haji Kulon Janja now what the long down the Jewudua, John Debudua.
Decent.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the Chijana?
So the first category under reflection on the universal suffering of cyclic existence is reflection on the 8 types of suffering. So we'll get into that. And when we look at Jayan Sheba's outline, the Jayan Sheba, the Sache Gatse Du. So in Jayan Sheba's outline, we find 6 categories presented. So the first category is what is the origin of this enumeration of 8? So where is this from? So we have a quote from Nagarjuna's friendly letter here, and then we find Tsongkhapa states that the Buddha, this is the Bhagavan, the one thus gone, Lord Buddha, taught these types of suffering many times in the Hinayana and Mahayana teachings in the sutras. And then we have a quote from Nagarjuna's friendly letter that shows those 8, 4 explicitly and 4 indicated by words. And the words that are indicated by are so on. So we find those 8 types of suffering first at the main source presented by Lord Buddha in the Hinayana and Mahayana teachings and the sutras, and then a quote from Nagarjuna. And this quote from Nagarjuna is abbreviated, and what is meant by that, that it's a summary. Now it's abbreviated or condensed, and what that means is that again, there are 4 that are stated explicitly there, types of suffering, and then it says and so on, and then 4 indicated by words. So if we were just trying to look at this quote Nagarjuna presented, or try to find the sutras and pull the 8 out from there, it would be quite difficult for us. So that's why if we rely on the outline, it's easier, and because we can just see them listed there and then understand the other presentations. Dikso.
Oh, jeta dene. Ta ombi rimba to tuba jebundin sa khatu marbe. Ombi rimba to tuba gumbi chusa dele. Jebundin dinglaring nyas lambi goso chungu to tumu larin to so gungures. Chungu ko sija ngama langures. The langude ndido tumu imbejer. Ndido tumu jebu chungu lang su ngolo an jebu chembe ndinge nyale jegur jebu chemu ge nyale jegure. Juzen kadasana ndido tumu imbejer. Chebu to tumu imbejer osade go jeroba marbe.
So the second category is to take up the shared teachings. Here it's stating that the teachings of small capacity are actually for practitioners of medium capacity. So the reason is because they are shared, they are in common. So since they are in common, the small capacity teachings and practices are actually practices of the medium scope practitioner as well. So when we look at the practices for beings of medium capacity, we would also say not only are they the ones found specifically in that, but they would also be those that are shared with the beings of small capacity. So this is the second category, to remember to take up the shared teaching, to practice the shared teaching. Khensur Rinpoche.
Jeta dene ma karasugure. Tende jile so wote dunga nganu samba gomba nga chegung gures. Kui nyemi gomba tsaju san gomba lan chegung goso. Chegung ina ya na gombi se shinwa to goba to mande gures. Shingo to tew gures. Wote ndo to gonje gulu to mo dang na wote do to marbe. Shingo to tew gures.
Bene the Bugar, the Semche Dang Jegom Gu, Semche Dang.
Nganu samba wote, nganu samba shidro, nganu samba wote chegung gu res. Shaju sen da kui nyemi gombalan chegung gu sos. Chegung ina ya shinwa to goba to mande wa gu res. Shingo to resuna no gondi abmere ma chi legdwa.
So the third category is if one wishes to develop a desire to definitely emerge and so forth, it's necessary to meditate analytically, so to engage in analytical meditation, but not just engage in any kind of analytical meditation. It is analytical meditation that is free from the negativities of excitement and laxity. So these are the points that are made in category number 3. So if one wishes to generate the mind that aspires to enlightenment or bodhicitta, or if one wishes to generate the mind that wishes to definitely emerge, the desire to emerge from cyclic existence or renunciation, or if one wishes to realize the faults of cyclic existence, then it's necessary to analyze these things. And this analysis should be a pure analysis, free of those 2 negativities just mentioned. Diksum Rinpoche.
다 시바들로 왔대 나주 상바 공기 나왔대 이제 티바 송교 된 같은 두응거스 ane wade nga yung samba kumbala tene wade nye tuke tsolang zhulang tolang mulu lang raja ke tsolang zhulang tolang mulu lang tiba chenmi lang nga la soba tangji wade la tene reba te yung tukure sewa sare.
So the fourth category is dependence, by depending upon the determination to be free or the desire to definitely emerge. So by depending on this renunciation, one is able to go through all of the various paths. So by relying on renunciation, one can go through the hearer's path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, the path of no more learning. By relying on the desire to definitely emerge, one can go through the 5 paths of the Pratyeka Buddha, or the solitary realizer, the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. And also the 5 Mahayana paths. The path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. So all of these 3 vehicles rely on this desire to definitely emerge or renunciation. So this fourth category is that the 3 vehicles require and rely on a desire to definitely emerge, renunciation.
Dunga je sambatla wate dunga je sambatla wate jaji be saji ni digno ni dunga je nan tamuji dunga sambatla marwa tamuji dunga sambatla nga tene ji dunga sambatla nga hebu kudu duba saji ni digno ji dunga sambatla nga ta hebu kudu duba saji ni
nipa gondo duba sena
the whole ma dudu jin ma song ha chuo
dudu she okay
dudu jin song ha ji de la nga yo wa de nga she an whole ma dudu jin song ha ji wa
okay
what tel train test do.
So then the 5th category is the actual 8 types of suffering, and then Jayan Sheba for the susush the wani yure she do ne guide
de la ni
guide
ji nan ji de sheba la ji de nga de ne ni bu ku du bas sa ji ni ji hu re ji de kong lu da ji nan ne ji de kong de sa ji ni ji.
Okay, so we go through then the sache ngapa Dungyal J Kanga.
Dungyal J Kanga ro.
Okay.
J nan ta tong bu chi dung.
Okay. So when we look at category number 5, we're going to go through. It is the 8 types of suffering, but then we go through each of the 8 types of suffering. And there are 2 categories for each of. There's 2 categories for the first one. So Rinpoche said we start with the first one. The first one has 2 categories. The category is the suffering of birth by way of these 5 points, and then the second category is a condensed explanation or a summary of it. So these are the 2 categories, the 5 points that are made, and then a summary. So that's under the first suffering of birth, which is the first among the 8 types of suffering. All right. Sorry for the jumble.
rāng ngā nyū sāmbā chē ngū rēs, dōngā jē jē dā nī jī chē gā rēs, wate dōngā tū sāngā yī nā pēng chē gā rēs, ngā jē chā gā rē, rāng ngā nyū sāmbā chē gā rē, jē lē nī jī chē gā rēs.
So there is, it's very good that we go through this in detail so that it is not difficult to understand. And it's very important to understand these sufferings, because by doing so it helps to lessen our pride. it helps us to develop the desire to definitely emerge, to generate renunciation. It helps us to have compassion for others when we understand this. So it's very important that we understand this thoroughly.
Okay. Dunga jile tombo chi dunga sambala ngale jiwa dunga ta tempi dunga wane jiwa dunga ta tempi dunga wane jiwa dunga ta tempi dunga wane sa senje nyawa pa na ta taji do dunga yeda na ta ngene jiwa na ta gunga le jiwa te jibun da ne jiwa jibutada ne jiwa na dunga ji tsuwa trabu mabu jibi shiro sa wadi ji dunga nan tambu to wata res marba te da dunga ji le tambu ji dunga nga le jiwa dunga to tibe dunga wane jiwa dunga to tibe dunga wane and seje nyawa pa ti chi res nyawa yeda tunu nyawa je nyawa ta tene taji do ne dunga yeda na tas yeda ni je tene nge ne chewa na tas ta ngel je ken tu so de ja ures nge je nge jil ta nyawa ma ka men do a ngel je na tas ngel je wa je gon je what jete jibunda ne what ji dunga ji res marbe tada jiwa na dunga ji tsuwa trabu mabu ta jeba wo sa what ji dunga nga ga nan tambu de ren wa nyama je eda je tene ngene jiwa nge ji na ta tene gunga le jiwa ren do gunga le jibu tada ne jibu tada jiwa jibu tada ne jiwa na jibu tada na jibu tada na jiwa na jibu tada ne jiwa ne se te de ba ando jibu tada na jiwa na kige de tuba ina hamugo jibu tada wo jine jen do je nyawa je da je tene ngel jiwa je gungal jiwa jibu tada ne jiwa sibun tada ne jiwa sana tez madda ando jibu tada na jiwa jibu tada na jiwa na wade dunge tsuwa trabu mabuda jibu esir mabuda jiba insa jiwa dunge be dunge wa demba res wade jibu dwe wade kale loda.
So the first category, so the Geshe Rinpoche Lama Tsongkhapa presents us with these 5 categories this, under the suffering of birth. And this is the first category of Jayan Sheba's text, and then we have the summary category. So it says, birth is suffering because it is associated with pain. Birth is accompanied by many intense feelings of pain for the following 4 types of living beings. Those born as hell beings, hungry ghosts who invariably suffer, and beings born from a womb, and beings born from an egg. So it is painful for those beings. There are feelings of intense feelings of pain for those beings when they are born. So this is the first suffering of birth category. Diksum. Okay.
ina pechi jibu dada ni jiwa na pechi jimendo jibu dada ne jiwa na anu wote dunga tsuwa chabu yue zang jiwa dunga wa tang tibi dunga wa res niwa je da je ngay ji je gonga li jiwa jibu dada jiwa nes dada li jiwa ne jiwa na dunga tsuwa chabu yue zang jiwa dunga tang tibi dunga pechi tasan jiwa
the NGK the tsuwa dunga the nyawapa dang yida dang nye jewa dang gonga jewa jena the tsuwa dunga yure the nyamdu the jewa the nyamdu the jewa yuna the nyamdu the tsuwa dunga yure the je tsuwa dunga the shira chambo yure
the jiba ta 사단은 지부터다 네 지부터다 네 나기고 네 진도와 지부터다 네 지와나스 지부터다 네 지부터 버진 지사르다 지부터다 네 니와제다 제게지지 공지 지부터다 네 지와나 등은 소화 잡으요 소화 잡으요 당 지와 두해 비두해 와레스
Okay. So these beings, there are 4 beings listed here: hell beings, hungry ghost beings, beings born from a womb, and beings born from an egg. They have the suffering of birth because while they are being born, there is a feeling of intense pain at that time. So together with the birth, there is this intense feeling of pain. So when they are born, they have, we were looking at the Tibetan and the English. So it's when they are born, they have these intense feelings of pain. Therefore, this is their suffering of birth. This is the suffering of birth. So this is category number 1. So these 4 types of beings have this intense feeling of suffering while they're being born.
다 녀와도 예다 당해지스 로도와 근데 녀와보다 예다 줄응해지요 말베스티나 녀와벌응해지 아유 예다랑해지 아유 예나더니 녀와도 예다서 국내주 공로마 내주 공로 매부선 진도와 녀와도 예다당 드는해지스 네 내레지와당 공알레지와스 제자무도와 다 녀와보다 예다랑해지 아유미
이래
예다 릉해지 유나 안에 예다도 원해지 공자고도 녀와다 예다다 뇌지다 공알리지 와스
라서
대자모도 어떻게 더부도에
가르셴에 데 예다 데 예레 강이스네 데 네지 치셴에 데 예다 데 강가 네제와 요마레. Okay, so what we're looking at this point here is that those born as hell beings, hungry ghosts, and beings born from a womb. So we're trying to figure out if it's saying hungry ghosts born from a womb, if you're looking at the Tibetan, or hungry ghosts and those beings born from a womb. So are there hungry ghosts that are born from a womb? And are they usually born from a womb? Are there hell beings that are born from a womb? So you could almost even connect those hell beings and hungry ghosts that are born from a womb, if you're looking at the Tibetan. So Rinpoche said he thinks it's best to make it 4 separate categories of hell, hungry ghost, those born from a womb, and those born from an egg. But we have a doubt there that arises. We have to think about it. It's clear, and in English they wrote it a specific way, but when you look at the Tibetan, it could be read in a different way. So Rinpoche was asking what the English said, and then we were looking at the Tibetan.
근로직이 류바지 유샤지 드마드제 라고 말했어. 그래서 최단사 통화가 가르쳐베이나 되는 신동이나 감보 통대하고 처음에봐 통화하던 제마도 그러라고 해서 어떤데 로주시안도 왔어. Yeda Amajil Pungaja Yohare, Tena Baba de Kalasuga Chimbares, and the Galonchi Lubat Suyushavatu Label Tomat Kalada Womanas, what the Yeda Nature, what the Logisha Mara.
The Galon, the Yeda Galona, Chupa Busan there, the Natsukana la.
Galon Lubat, Tos Yogurota, what the Yeda, what the Kala Junior Morota. Kukala Tamato Rago, Marano to get her, Lubatus, you are patient more change. Tabajimatan, Saltan, with Laban Juju, Tamato, Kalarago, Mares, Yeda Amajil Pugo, Najayo, Yeda, Naju, with Tamaribe, Tenduluji, and was.
So, Rinpoche is stating that in the text, in the stories, we find a story of a hungry ghost couple, husband and wife, and the wife had 500 children. So we see the story in the past stories where this hungry ghost had 500 children. And in the hungry ghost realm, there isn't any water, there isn't any food. All of the vegetables and fruits and everything just becomes very dry, dried up. Dried up. So everything that they want to utilize is all dried up. So they don't have anything. So there's a story of a monk, a fully ordained monk who made an offering, which I'm not clear. I believe, I don't know if the hungry ghost perceived it as spit, because that's all they could see, but I believe the fully ordained monk gave his spit, some of his spittle, to the hungry ghost, and made some sort of dedication for them to prosper in the future. And that's the whole story Rinpoche told. But the point of it is that there is the point that the mother gave birth to 500 children. So then we have then born from an example of birth from the womb in a hungry ghost because of that story. So this offering was done because the fully ordained monk wanted to engage in practice of generosity, and he knew that this is what the hungry ghost could use. So this was the reason that he offered that. So he thought if this is something that the hungry ghost can use, then I will offer this because it's something that they will use. So the first point is that birth is suffering because when a hell being or a hungry ghost being or a being born from the womb or a being born from an egg is born, that birth is accompanied by intense feelings of suffering, of pain. So therefore, it is suffering and is the suffering of birth. Rinpoche put it like that. It is suffering, and therefore this is the suffering of birth. That's the Rinpoche.
Nengele da dembe, nengala de nyomo benjebe yizang, nengala de dembe, leso moron atan, leso moron atan, onjo maila asa. What the Sulpa Nasu San Luke Power to Maris, when you are moving to be Rosan, what the Sulpicia would de Casure. Constantly du J. Taji, the Yomo be shoot on Tumbi, Yomo be shoot on Tumbi, Yomo be devoted, Yomo be shoot on Tumbi, Neng and Legis, Neng and let the Dembe Lesumoron dancer. The council go Yamung Debuk Galo de Lesuron Jue Maris, Onjo my pa onjo two Maris. Council
Lesu Rua Yomare.
The council, the council consumer led on Yamon Shumaro.
Leso.
Led on Yamon Shuma Inza, Yamon Shuma Inza, what the co be Masu Pejin Yaga Jue Maris. Neng lada dembe leso moron onjo milas kusul pa onjo sen pa onjo tu mares da onjo maila kanson ji sejen da je deje ngobar kanson ji sejen da je deje ngoban ruba runa nyemo be shudan tumbi neng lada jeso Devates, tas de kangue le long jeu, je kangue le long jeu, je me kangue le long jeu, wote, kanaji tuba inaya, wote, les on yabu re mares, nyomo bat jesun re diores, dona nyomo bat jewatan, nyomo nebatan, puis sabun jesu, Day, Sabin Jesu Day, Gua Guzebi, Leso, Romelasa. And the council Jawate, the council Zume Kangawate, the Sukalo, Nyomo was happened to Jeduesan, and what the Guazuya del Calicabo in this, Kunyomo with Debbie Radio Gua Guzebi Lesuron, young man Lasa. Golku was and then also saying Guazuya. Lunga is Shuba Guazuya, the Calicabu waters, could you move in the dress? What's on this about that?
Birth is suffering because it is associated with dysfunctional tendencies. All of the compositional factors of the three realms, because they are associated with dysfunctional tendencies that are in harmony with the class of the afflictions, are ill-suited to service of virtue and uncontrollable. Moreover, once you possess the compositional factors of a living being within the three realms, you too are bound to dysfunctional tendencies that are in harmony with the class of afflictions. In short, because the compositional factors are associated with seeds that generate, sustain, and increase the afflictions, they are ill-suited to the service of virtue. Furthermore, you cannot control them as you wish. Here it says the three realms of cyclic existence. So it's stating the the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. All of these realms are a result of the afflictions. So everything, the enjoyments, the bodies, and so forth, all of these things within the experience of each individual realm is brought about by afflictions. So because it's a result of that, it's necessarily suffering. So, and because our actions are in harmony with afflictions, the class of afflictions, because of that, it's very difficult for us to engage in virtue. Because we have so many afflictions, these seeds of afflictions and negativities that influence us, that kind of push us, make us... you can't control them as you wish, is the word. So you're not independent. as far as your actions go. And you have these seeds that are bringing about negative actions, and these seeds you are under the influence of. So these afflictions you're under the influence of, so they influence your actions and so forth. They aren't in the class of, they aren't in harmony with virtue, they're in harmony with the afflictions. So therefore, these dysfunctional, I think it says dysfunctional tendencies, I think that's the word that's used, even if it's not, I think dysfunctional tendencies that we engage in come about because our existence is brought about by afflictions. So this is what we're under the influence of, and this is why birth is suffering, because it is associated with dysfunctional tendencies. It is associated with, brought about by the afflictions. Decent, Rinpoche.
Tando kanzo me so ode kasogore lu nga yison de gwazu ya de kali kabu wares ku nyomo be debere de so sa nyomo be jewa de chedo ye so sa ode lu da nga shoba de gwazu ya kali kabres
so
lesuron ayo mares roa.
So when we're in cyclic existence, our actions of our body, speech, and mind are under the influence of the afflictions. We don't have any independence when it comes to their influence. We can't stop them. They're not within our control. This influence is not within our control. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back.
Tanto bache zukanche zume kansombe nyomobe nyomo angshoma nyomo angshoma yinza nyomo be shudo tuba yinza wade ne lunga yesu de wazu ya kalikabu res jewa nengele de dongyawa do nas nyomo jewa ta ne ba ta phi sabu jesu de yu ne lunga yesu de wal kuya les urumaya metos tene les urumaya meto ondo nas chendonde jindo onjo morumwa us chendonde jindo lenga izonde chendonde jindo onjo rumar kar ko leta nyomo mo jumare diores chonenga ne ta de ba yesuza otka ni je ta sombandere doa Joa dunga jine zubi dunga wanes, Joa dunga jine zubi dunga wane, Kanson do, Joa lambe, Tala tene, Gawatan, Nawatan, Joa la subi, Dunga jeban joa us, Ta Joa dunga jine zubi dunga wasate, Ta leta nyomo mo kishendo, Kan zume si Joa lamba na, Ane leta nyomo mo kishendo bi Joa, Zukan ki Joa, Zume ki Joa lang sadu le, Tene, Joa de lang sadu, Tene, Joa de lang sadu rawa, Joa de lang sadu, Ane, Joa de lang sadu le, Tene kebu chan doba yo marde, Rama ba gien gres, Naya doba yo marde, Rama ba nayong gres, Cheang doba yo marde, Rama ba wate chen gres, wate dunga wate yo ares, wate Joa nyomu jine su chibirwa, Joa dunga jine su chibi dunga wane, Kan sung tu Joa lambe, Tala tene, Gawa dans, Gaya doba yo marde gan gre, 나하고 도바요 말도 문도진 나용으로 차하고 도바요 말도 문도진 치와라 수비 안에 동에 제발 주어 오스테인 소소 저와 동에 지내 수비 동에 와서 어떻게 그래서 말이야 어떻게 송바 땡서 말이야.
Okay, so going back, we look at the major heading, the suffering of birth. In the first category, it deals with 4 types of beings: hell beings, hungry ghost beings, beings born from a womb, and beings born from an egg, and shows how that their birth is suffering, because while they're being born, they have intense feelings of pain. While the birth is taking place. So this is category number 1. So because they have this intense pain, they have the suffering of birth. Category number 2, birth is suffering because it is so associated with dysfunctional tendencies. Birth is brought about by the afflictions. So our body, speech, and mind are under the influence of the afflictions. So therefore we have dysfunctional tendencies, and because of these seeds of non-virtue, these negative seeds, which are the afflictions, the seeds of the afflictions, because we have these influencing us, it makes it very difficult for us to engage in virtue through our body, speech, and mind, because our very existence is brought about by afflictions, by negativities. So this is category number 2. Category number 3 is birth is suffering because it is the origin of suffering. You take birth in the 3 realms, and on that basis suffer old age, illness, and death. So in the desire realm, in the form realm, in the formless realm, when you are born, your birth is brought about by the afflictions. So you're born into cyclic existence by your afflictions. And because of taking birth, because that event happened, you then have to suffer old age, have to suffer illness, and have to suffer eventually death. So this is so therefore, birth is suffering. Okay, so in number 3, birth is suffering because from the basis that is born, how the best way to say it? Everyone understands it, I know, but because of the basis that you're born into, that is under the influence of the afflictions, you have to suffer old age, illness, and death. So this is the third category. Because you're born, you have to suffer these other things.
Chabi yu dang, dang yi yu dang, ne mombar yu yu na la tu sung che shins, te jang lu dang, sen ra tu ma ji shin, du ne dewa la, mene pa te, nyo mo bi gu na tu ne, lu dang, sen duwa wo sa. Ta jawa nyo mo jine su bi du nga wa se tere mi du ta, le don yo mo kin do ba tan zo do zo me cheba na tene yu do chabi yu di do wa la tene do sha che gre yi do mo la tene kon do che gre ne tene yu ba ma ten tamo che res
Bama sena
ta yi do wa da yi do mo ma
Mayimba ale
do tene tamo ta songal phe che je ro tamo a Lendela Maribata, the Konanila Mariba, the Yidunwa, the Moata, Pamatsama, the Yajirota. That Yidunwa, then what in the Shachim was Duba Yoba Maina, the Shayoba Kalajus. Zawashiro to Slade Mudwe, Duba Yuba, my in the Shire College, Duba, you don't want the Mena, the Shachatu Maris, the Shat, you don't want Latin the Shachers, Madu Yuba Maina, Shadan Yuba College, Maduba the Mena, and then Contu Chica Maris. What is looking at the Mudwe? You do all at the Contu, the Shachere. We Modu was then a country chigre, Pamala then Tamu chigre, Tamu da Idu Mo, Pamasungal then Jam was Ledilla Mo Maribata, Tekonanila Mo Mariba. What is this one in Samarba? Giovanni Mujines should be Giovanni Mujines should be doing on this. Qua Jeba Nase, let on your mobile to a consul, Zumel Jeba Na, and a Chabi Yutan. Chabi you don't want the Treatise, the Chachin with it. Don't you, Mamma, you don't want the Treatise, Conducting with it. Nemoban Jew, Pama, Tamoban Jew, then Pamas and Takangaljan Digo.
Pama, the sinner, Rimshigoya, maybe the Pama, sinner.
Pama said you don't want more Nero, the Jiggy, the Pamas.
Oh, okay, don't get me a bitchy.
You don't want you do better. You don't want you to do better. That do better, Maduba Mayamba Juro. The Pamayamba, Tapama.
I like Nico
Mine, the Mochin was let, Lendel Maribata, Danzi Chigurota, Danzi down.
Oh, that's
what is the Chimongurota? What the Chimongurata?
So, number 4, birth is suffering because it is the origin of the afflictions. And so going back to number 3, I'm sorry, I left something simple out, but I did leave it out. Birth in the 3, so because you are born in the 3 realms of cyclic existence, you have to suffer old age, illness, and death, even though you don't want to. So that part, even though you don't want these things, because you were born, you have to have them. You have to suffer. That was just another point in number 3. So number 4, when you are born in cyclic existence. So when you are born in any among the 3 realms of cyclic existence, whether it's the desire realm, the form realm, or the formless realm, the 3 mental poisons arise for objects of attachment, hostility, and ignorance. So objects that we find attractive, we become attached to. Objects that we find unattractive, we become hostile towards. So we find in Nagarjuna's root wisdom text, it states that if there isn't the tsawa sherap yanje the lon the yito mena
Duba yoba maina dosha yoba duba yidunwaro da yidunwa duba the meba ina dosha yungumares dosha kane yungumares duba yoba maina dosha yoba kalanjuro Madu yoba maina shedan yoba kalanjus Madu za control lang kurul yidu moaji tone no control lang goro Madu yoba maina shedan yoba kalanjurus Madu ba twa de mena no control chegmares ne bam what yidu mo mai karum mai be chudil ba mala gojo ta tella dene ane what den tekonanila mo maribada lendila mo maribata chenguro ta so son la dene what the tozun chenguro sa tozun.
So these 3 poisons, we find the presentation in the Nagarjuna's root wisdom text, where it states, if there is not something attractive, there cannot be attachment. If there is not something that is unattractive or ugly, hostility won't be brought about. And then ignorance is referring to that which is not attachment, ignorance is referring to a category that is neither that which is found attractive or that which is found unattractive. So that ignorance would be referring to the ignorance of reality, which is the grasping at true establishment, and the ignorance of karma and its results. When we find something attractive, we become attached to it. When we find something that isn't attractive or find something that we find to be ugly, then we become hostile towards it. And then this ignorance is that which is neither of those two reactions to attractive or not attractive in those categories just presented. As a result, body and mind are disturbed and are in pain, and you cannot be happy. The afflictions torment your body and mind in numerous ways. So that's the point. Birth is suffering because it is the origin of the affliction. So when you're born, the afflictions, the three mental poisons are there, and your birth is as a result in any among the three realms of the afflictions. Because it's a result of the afflictions and it's the origin of the afflictions, then it is therefore suffering. Dixon Rinpoche.
Choa le mandi shin, te yang mandu la te jang, du ngen kona, nyungwa sheba wo, te ta na ji tse du ngen tang ten bas, te ta na ji tse du ngen tang ten bas te jibe, ne ngen le tang ten ba ji shin, jiba te jang, wo ta ting so re, te nga pa ting so re. Joa Mando Jinto, Jay, Training be doing on there. Joa Tanji led on your mobile into a consul, Zoman, Joa Tanji, and the Jetta Shinji the La, and the touch and the
cigarette.
Chola Mandi Waters, Chola Mandi Jins. They are Mando La, Choa del Dubai, Mother Tejan, and the Dugan Kona, Noa Sheba Wosa.
Fifth category, birth is suffering because it is an unwanted separation. All birth ends in death, which is undesirable and causes you to experience only suffering. So birth has at its other side a certain death, and it's something that you don't want. It's not. It says which is undesirable, something you don't want. So therefore, and causes you to experience only suffering. When you're dying and then you die, this is only an experience of suffering. It's something that you don't want, and it only happens because you were born. This separation. Dixon Rinpoche.
What is what the number the Redwa? Tandema what the judge was hatching on what the Duba says you do what the
okay.
Never don't do Allah, never don't do a down, Chabasheva Niles, never don't do a thing that it. Tamata G doing a ngaro, Nabutama doing that it. Tatana. Ji dungen tang, ji ce dungen tang jeba tang, nengen le tang deba ji xin, jeba de jang, ne nawa tang gawa la subi, nawa tang gawa la suba tang, nyumo ba na tang, chewan dren la sa. Tada ki jang, Dungan Shebe, two Samba Sheba was what the don't do Teresa. Don't do the Jimmy so doing at the Jeba Jim would do doing at the Jin Jeware and then Nangale Noa Sheba. What the Nakura Jodro. Tatana Jimmy say doing at the Jeba. Jeba tang, nengen la deba jishin, ma jing du, doing the deba the nengen la deba jing wares. Jeba te jang, Jeba la tene, and Mendojin the Goa Yungur, now Yungure, now la suba tang, Nyomoba, na tang, Chuan den lasa, the Latin Yomuji Yungure, Chewat Yungures. 오제 다다장 동행와 시비 추선바시고 오서부터 두두두두가 장지보도 두두세도 인사래 어떻게 지도는 아버도 마두두진 좀 와레스
Okay. So now we have the summary, or the condensed point, according to Jayan Sheba's outline. So next is the second part. Thus, at birth, you are bound to pain and endowed with dysfunctional tendencies. Birth leads to illness, aging, and so forth, as well as the afflictions and death. Consider how these give rise to suffering as well. And then it gets into specifically the suffering in a womb. In particular, the suffering you undergo in the womb is described in Chenrezig Roman's letter to a student. This is the summary part in Jayan Sheba's outline.
This one.
This one.
What did you do? Tadana Chibitse, Dungeta Chibata, Nangala de Bachi, Dungeta Chibata, Nangala de Bachi, Juarez, Chiba Tejan, Chibatella Tene, Medusin the Gawatan, now to Jun Water, now Sultan, Nyomo but now, Telatene Yomuji Wares, and then Shiva, Chiva the Wares, Chiva and then last. Tadaki Jan. Dunkhwa Shebe, Chusan Bawos, what the Jiba Tadaki Jan Dunkhwa Shebe, what the Santa address, what the Ji Dungat Ma doing what is. Don't do what there is.
So again, this condensed point is thus at birth you are bound to pain and endowed with dysfunctional tendencies. So birth is associated with dysfunctional tendencies, and birth is suffering because it is associated with pain. Birth leads to illness, aging, and so forth. Here, birth is suffering because it is the origin of suffering, as well as the afflictions and death. Birth is suffering because it is the origin of afflictions. Birth is suffering because it is unwanted separation. Consider how these give rise to sufferings as well. So you see how those 5 points are condensed into that one paragraph. Khensur Rinpoche. Okay. So then now in Jayan Sheba, the Jayan Sheba Sache ni Tambo de Ewa Nga, Dene Nipa de Dudu. Oh, Gongyal Rinpoche. So category number 2, I apologize, is in Jayan Sheba's outline. The first category are these 5. Second category is the summary and then the expanded explanation. So I apologize. I got the summary, but I missed the expanded explanation part, which fits into that category number 2 in Jayan Sheba's outline. So now we get into a more expanded explanation of these sufferings, and we begin with the suffering in the womb. So we have a summary of the points and then an expanded explanation. Gong Mechi. Chaba Sheba Nga. So then, so we have the summary in Jayan Sheba's outline. We have this summary, and then we have an expanded explanation or a broader explanation. And in that broader explanation, there are 5 points made, or 5 parts to Jayan Sheba's outline.
What the Chebra dos Nana Chebra Sheba said, what in this Hajit Redua Cheba Dungena Nebi says, Dunga Nuanes, Tangato Ami to Buji on the lower day, Nena Nebi said Dunga Carriers and the Juarez Chendra Nuanes, 네, 루틴 레세, 로메 센터 공 말베.
Lesso.
로메 센터 공 루틴 레 신도 마제 정아 마장 왜 마장 윤가사 다 아메 주고 노데 보고 제사 나루로데 신도 마제 비 정아 정망가 마요 와르스 정아 마장 지내서 마장 지 어느 때 보고 제 대사도 마장 와래
Lesso.
어느 어때 세는 때네 고용 뭐 가요 말씀 좀 시리즈로다 아무 조고는
Lesso.
무슨도 보지만도 가요지 말로다 신도 정한 마장 지위내서 지로선데서 말이야 지위내 지가 라도 도바서 어떻게 나룰 부수도 버고 고용 뭐 말레스 되네 메나 잘 메나 티보 도바이스 메나 토보 아메 주고 나고마도 루도 되는 가요지 말로다
Lesso.
도바이스
Lesso.
안에 내내 녀와 답이 나도 뜻주네스 내내 봐도 녀이 동에 답이 와르지 나도 뜻주네스 le yon con la de Chenmo nagusos le yon de con cha de rota con la de Chenmo ne de Chenmo ta gusu de Chenmo o de le roje no de mo ba
Lesso.
ta gusos
Lesso.
She son bataro, le versando come son banajo wate ngel nebi negozo wate ngel dunga to son yores
Lesso.
ta jenu chi da gitun na chanda come chi da gitun ngel dun jubales ngel dun jubate ngel dun juban do yina tenju ina mure ngel dun juban dun son do serta ma wate se khasebu zo yores ngādun jubale matang
Did Injike Becha did the Sensampi Dawa the do
do yinsa
the Sensampi Dawa Nala
do yinjira watin yingre
the Chuni.
ngādun jubasa ta kāda pogo ame jogo na pogo cha na chu she de do jojira wata
Lesso.
ngādun jubales matang na ba mabu yonso kanwa matang ngā ama jogo na le matang yonso kanwa simbi ri tongcha mobos tanga jogo na lu de mo yo res tanga su mi de tongo ma nga su zobu na lu simbi ni chi dong yus na su bu shen de song yo da zobu na lu simbi bo ni chi dong yo res tena ami jogo na lu de mo yo res bo simbi ri tongcha mo bu nes tena lu ami jogo na lu de mo yo res simbu mabi ne shinto zhenga yu nuni dang denba shinto zhenga yu nuni dang denbi rubi bega dang kongbu pu toma dang denba sa Ruby Casando.
Rugo.
Ruby Pogazero, Ruby
Rugo. Bon.
Amapu Majon, then Rugu, the Rugu. What is one is bon? Ruby Pogatan.
Gemma Yapi Omari.
Oh.
The Rugo Ni.
What is one that?
The Sacha Ni, the Jetsa Ni Yure, then Jetsa Ni, the Nanga,
Ruby Bogatan, Combo Tomatan Demba, Combo Tomatan Demba,
aperture.
Jindan, Tenalul, Tachimba, Lebatan, Chimba the Lebatan, Lejadan, Kangi Tuji, Jenjento. 譬如啥，刚个做渐渐我譬如，他那路路的，金巴的做那路员那么那关系啊，金当时俺们不过有啥那路了，金巴爱用那是吧？他刚才不过嘛，金用的金巴用啥的那用个了的啊，金当来巴当，金当来巴当，来家金当来巴是哪？我的可查不出来呢，来巴当来家当。 刚给出去，渐渐都，譬如说我的对吧？留下来是不得啥的，对吧？是有，譬如，龙溪店那是龙溪店那，看呢，给起了的，不过都的，都是做进的那，看的给不了的嘛是吧？ 아미 기발바 카 기발바 테네 어디야 저도지 되면 와 저도지 아미 기발들 카발룬 되면 와 아미 주고는 어디 카 기발 때네 카드 계실 때는 칸도스 발룬이 이제부터
그 현저스데
보고 아마 주고는 여러 칸에서 요아레스 카드 은 파된 요래 기질 파된 요아레스 카 기질 때네 야 저도진데 요아레스 대체는 둘레 레지 롱기 보고도 구슬로 요아레스 구슬로는 것도 맞췄대 감바돼야 되네 맞대용도 뭐게도 용 어떤 손에 인사를 레자다 레바다 자바단 저희 세지 루콘네 띠부가네 조베네 제신사 다마 칼라사둘 아마 칼라사둘 보고도 아마를 대화진도 다 되는바 타반도 요 말베 어떤 세계 주대 보고로네 보고도 어때 소대야도 마시야도 어때 아마 칼라세 세균이 뭐도 어디 부글 누워서 대 타버지도 와.
맞아.
어떤 전에 조배 제신사 너너보다 mamma보다 다다보다 다 근데 아무 죽은 보고 찾아도 대서 뭐다 인사다 고치를 쳐주자고 너너보다 다보고 고고서 그때 내가 뭐 인사래. 너무 밤이 고타도마도 말로 나세슈 저는 고치를 용으로 너너보 고고보 다다보도 세이사래. 너너보다 mamma보다 나보다 고고보 칸라 추바는 칸바들 라바체 온거지로다 칸라 추비 모용소 도번 조아 조신스 안에 칸라도 제노도 조부용도 제용어레스 라바당 칸바당 드람바네 샤민 회지 TV에서 다가다 보고도 왔대 보고 해도 왔대 벤지면왜 왔던 루틴이 와서 보고 맞죠 우리 코만지도 왔다 왔던 이사 말베 그실로만 동도 어디 티리 와서 다 라바다 깜바다 드람바네 샤민 회지 왔대 보고 그 실로려서 샤는 과반지도 와 어디 대세는 인사래 샤민 hö지 티스 그것도 되노로요다
맞아.
안 봐지오도 그 실로모도 와
맞아. just fall out.
Jesus. Tang shisa yin do. Tang shisa yin do. Chengwa wa tang. Tang shisa dang ha na ji tang du bi sa de ma ba. Wo de na ji na shi da bu de is da. Na do nga zo na do do shi ne te ya don de yo ro te ten da bu de.
Oh, lesser.
Tang shisa yin do. Chengwa wa sa tang shi de ma. Chengwa wa.
Lesser.
Chengwa wa ne ba ma ze ba. Mena Chenwa ne yeme du ju se mena Chenwa ne yeme du ju mena ke Chenwa na khun yo na khun
That's so.
tene se ji ru kha wa da chu ro wa da zu ba da
That's so.
ne lan cha da cha wa da ne ko wa ma ta ta bi ma ta da gi Dagin ris. Dame Kalasa Uduote, Kalatane, Kabutan, Jubutan, Seven about the Sadi Bull Nogo, Bule, Juruatan, Tubatan, Lansat Tarota, Tatu no Sabatan, Gaba Matatabo, Giba Matatabos, Giba Matatabo. Nota tabu tagi in ris the magi mal rida na sabr is
Lesser.
an chasab tondu to bugule mal subanda bin jiro ta
Lesser.
Simbo c'est dramaje mazan yu kune suza Saint drama yin na zang yin sus tang ga zo de bu de ko su ya de kala nan de ko ma zang yi ame zhu gu wo tuan go ya su ng ro ji go ro ma zang yi so ma zang wa ja ba ra to ba yi ma zang wa ja ba ra to ba yi da jin to ne song na jin to ne song sa 나제도는 수고 온부네 맞대 수고 온부 시주주르스 템비오 마레스 마이 르지 나기 세네 군네 동 군도 용수 동사 어때 아메 조고놀까 아마 구주자 그 칼라사 동어들에게 북을 동해 요소로다. 군도 동. 네. 차군도 차 어때 나사 잡을 요소송 된사래. 차. 시군도 시용소 시진 동해지 초와 첸보 동해지 초 첨보 잡아做吧 mazeba yido mo yu mo ana nyuan joros cheta ti ma cheta ti mai yu ada kundu yu ada yonsu yu teta ya te金王爱金巴当，妈妈，接东都接巴啥，你没听差不多这些，接东都就把大波对岸接，错大波，做把么子吧。이도 뭐와啥不想往高牛有些种说我的眼的这边说的都眼毛没有送有的是他眼的就变多来这些都没哈讲没鸟都수바든 아마 칼라 뭐 사와다 뉴뉴 사와든 라데네 보글 등에 용고서 칼라 뇽송나 야 보고 진디게 매지래 칼라 모자나 보고 등에 요서로다 뭐냐도 쇠바당 하장 등에 드라마 차와 아마 드라마 차송나 야 보고 등에 매도 차부치 차와 라차초와 자와 나와 카와 칼라 담나 모사나 보고 강에 요서로 하장 가이 아주 발른다던 차부터 세나요 보고 넣으면 와 세수바다 demain 쉬어봐도 demain 쉬어봐도 다 마상바 쉬어도 보고 등에 있어 마상바 쉬어봐 demain 쉬어봐 단스 demain 쉬어보고 된 찍어요 하장 주바다 아마 주부로 이나 보고 등에 있어 주바다 하장 주바다 총바다 전지도 보고 그 나올 등에 있어 tené 제와다 메이 존나 도간사 제와다 tené 마칼도스 데바이나 보글 강에 메도아 메이 존나 도간 도나야 아마야 조조진 데바이나 보글 강에 메도아 네나 네바 요 송신 c'est que l'on qui tenait jiwa ne jimbala suba ani mi drabu ji abuji tong mu sui
ne
que l'on qui tenait jimba 세신기 조바신도 내버송소 그라지야도 좀 알아서 그란도스 다운들 보고 강해요. 어디 칼레지 루지루다.
네
나도
네 라바니 감바니 고치 나
오래
네 라른 쳔모 the indicate jalo 네 켈랭도
나래 내도 줘봐 마자와 내가 나는 쳐봐도 내가 내비스 시소사 내가 내봐서 내가 나가던 담부드레스 네바 매세소비스 동양어레스 네바드레스 아마 칼라사두 어디 동양어 네바드레스 다 안에 somba les jeux longtemps sans rien souci donner somba wata aman roa dans niamba dans wata suki pour donner yores cheta jiba du ama pour aman match on dul den donner yores ama rugu ni sa do wata isarwa jiba du je donner ne ji ce shesuresa
네 nga tranka de yanjer no nge de trick
nga de tambo tere do nga de tambo ne na da tambo tere do tambo nga roa tambo ne na mazamba ne bi do ke wa cheba to ne na ne bi se se do de tambo re ne ba de me se se ba zo o te ne ba re ja 아마 칼라사도 등에 와서 니버레 somba데 네메 쉐런타 장에 나서지 등에 와 아만도야다 녀야다 어디서 이사마르베 쉐런 조야다 총바다 어디서 이사레 제바데 아만 보고 맞지 모두 강에 와서 루구니 나로마도는 어디 등에 와서 제바데레자 Jiba Zeluji Dunges Tangaba to what Zema Tabi Zamata was doing it. Pumachimata the Lanza doing yours, to loot the labari dule, what the melt to the Nabmadwa.
Napa.
On the Nabat water Reja, Pumachita do Pugumabajuro, what an to rule tea, shall jagger the Mazulabatel to do Mulriban of the Kukangi waters. Not the Reja.
Then Jipa, the Selpo Jor Tugumare.
Jiba, the water it was
Go
Jiba.
Melpichi Rimche.
Ah.
Gonga Melpichi.
Jibandere, Jiba Zeduji doing a rota. Zedu Amatu, my chigrota. Zedu Rugu to cigarettes and the louds of the rota.
It's so kegadu, chadu.
What the Tubu Macho or to the Rugu.
Oh, okay.
What the
Dugio.
Dugas.
Okay. Then Tambo Matsawa, Nipa Kalatsa, Sumba Pardro Mardro, Jipa de Jugo, then Ngapa,
Naba Teresa,
the
Naba Tema Tavares, Pugu Machi Sadu, and what the
Sacha, okay, placenta.
and Tuluna Madame Kitty,
So
what the Lugancho was.
then Nga,
Is it doing us or the
Nga Chimba,
Ah.
Nga Chimba, Nye Chimba. The Dene.
Ah.
The Longe Dene. Chenwang Nye Chimban Selshing.
Touch him on us with the Gemado Maria.
Okay. The Mambo Lago. Okay, so what that I have to translate a lot. Where are we? So in particular, so thus, as at birth you are bound to pain and endowed with dysfunctional tendencies. Birth leads to illness, aging, and so forth, as well as the afflictions and death. Consider how these give rise to suffering as well, and particularly the suffer you undergo in the womb is as described in Chenrezig's letter to a friend. After you have entered the womb, which is like hell, you are hemmed by foul-smelling filth and trapped in pitch-dark gloom, your body cramped, and you must undergo enormous sufferings. And then we have a sutra quote that's very long. The Descent into the Womb Sutra explains the meaning of these words. Filthy with quantities of urine, brain-like substances, thick saliva, and marrow, the fetus dwells above the intestines and below the stomach, in a space which is filled with many kinds of filth, and is home to a myriad of bacteria, with two very foul-smelling openings and hollows and apertures in the bone. Its front faces the vertebrae, and its back the stomach wall. It is nourished every month by its mother's uterine blood. The bits of food its mother has eaten are ground by her 2 rows of teeth and swallowed. As it is swallowed, the food is moistened from below by saliva and the oozing of mouth sores, while it is polluted from above by thick saliva. The remains of that vomit-like food enter from above through the umbilical cord's opening and generate growth. Through the thickening, quivering, elongated, and globular stages, the embryo is completely transformed into a fetus with arms and legs. The placenta encloses its arms, legs, and cheeks. Reeking like an old rag used for mucus, the stench is unbearable. Enshrouded in pitch darkness, it moves up and down. The bitter, sour, pungent, salty, spicy, and astringent tastes of food affect it like hot coals. Like an intestinal worm, it feeds on filthy fluids. It finds itself in a swamp that oozes rotting filth. Its life force is unstable. The heat of its mother's body torments, heats, and overheats it. All in 3 degrees, slightly, moderately, and greatly. It experiences distressing, intense, violent, and unbearable agony. Whenever its mother moves a little, moderately, or greatly, it also moves in the same way, constrained by 5 bonds. It experiences agony that is distressing, intense, violent, unbearable, and almost inconceivable, as though it had been thrust into a pit of burning cinders. So here, there's various types of suffering that the fetus has to undergo when in the womb. Its place where it is very dirty. It is unclean. with smell. So there are 5 categories that are presented with foul smells and various bacterias and so forth. The common nigu, various bad smells and the various urines and bacteria. It is stated that there are 21,000 different bugs that are inside the womb while the baby is in there, it's stated, and they are around it and causing suffering at that time to the baby. Whatever food, that's the first category, the dirty, unclean, bad smell, and so forth. So it's the area where the baby is staying. And the food that it eats, the food the mother eats really affects the baby. If it is spicy, or if it is hot, or if it is cold, all of these degrees of temperature of the food that the mother eats harm the baby. Whether it's hot, it's very hot. If it's cold, it's very cold. And then the spices and so forth also do. And when these spices actually get to the fetus, they're hot, and they're almost like hot coals. They're like fire that this fetus has to eat. Whenever the mother moves around, it hurts the baby, and it affects the baby because it has to move in the same motions with the mother. So there is suffering. Okay, so Rinpoche is saying we're out of time. When it's born, the bones hurt, and then it's enclosed in the placenta and can't move as if it's bound and in jail. So these are the points that are made. I didn't omit any. Now we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Kangalasana. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi